Touge is Japanese for pass, and the mountain passes of Japan are among the most amazing roads in the world. Ironically, the back and forth bends carving through the mountains were designed to slow traffic and reduce wear on vehicles. But these curves were irresistible to local car aficionados who still gather each night. This hidden subculture was highlighted in the manga and anime Initial D. Initial D told the story of an AE86 driving tofu delivery driver turned racer and his journey competing on various toges throughout Japan. Initial D paid attention to technical details with the real-life Drift King Keiichi Tsuchiya as a consultant, but also let movie magic push the boundaries. So, what cars would be the fastest in real life? Thankfully, we have something to work with, as Best Motoring's Hot version features a segment where 3 of the best drivers in Japan, and a random girl dressed as a cat or something, take cars brought in from various tuners and pit them against each other in a downhill race on the Gunsai Touge. The Touge is extremely different from a road course, and way more dangerous. The elevation changes, bumps, and leaves scattering the narrow road with no runoff demand the car be tuned correctly to instill confidence in the driver and avoid disaster. The downhill nature of the course means that while power is still important, handling trumps all. These differences lead to surprising upsets, like the new NSX, a 580 horsepower supercar filled with modern tech, losing out to an older NSXR with a stock engine. Many Initial D fans have argued that for these reasons, the small lightweight star of the show, the AE86, would in fact be the ideal candidate to dominate the Touge. But in reality, well, today we're going to find out. Before we get to the list, let's get a baseline first, with the fastest production car to ever challenge the Touge. And it's a GTR. Oh, but not this one. Nope, not that one either. And close. But the fastest Touge machine ready to roll right off the showroom floor isn't a Nissan GTR, but a Mercedes AMG GTR, with the sector time of 25.769. Trick technology may have helped the Germans take the crown, like active aero and active steering, which can alter the toe of the rear wheels to decrease the turning radius at low speeds, while adding stability at high speeds. In a head-to-head Initial D-style battle of the GTRs, the 575 horsepower Mercedes actually lost to a 600 horsepower R35 Nismo Special Edition, likely in part to the all-wheel drive of the Nissan adding consistency throughout a battle which took place in cold weather when the track was slippery and covered in leaves. For the sector time though, the Mercedes wins in this high-powered battle. But how would it do against a modified R35? Well, it's no surprise that when the legendary tuner mines through their whole parts catalog at the R35, it shaved a few tenths off the Nismo time, running at 25.732 and taking number 10 on the list. Mines cannot claim the fastest GTR on the list though, as while Mines is known for fast cars on the circuit, there's another team which has spent a lot more time on the Touge. Matchless Crowd Racing, or MCR for short, had a custom parts armory of their own to prepare their R35 for the Touge to run at 25.682. The MCR team specializes in skylines and are no stranger to the Touge, having brought their R34 to multiple events in the past. While Mines may have the fastest GTR on the track, the MCR is the fastest on the Touge. The modified GTRs might have held Mercedes from reaching the top 10, but they couldn't compete with the assist BMW E92 M3. This car was tuned specifically with the Touge in mind, with special dampers installed to smooth the bumps of the Touge, along with an LSD set just for this small section of road. This BMW showed just how big of a difference tuning can make, beating up on the other 600 horsepower monsters on this list with the 25.672, using only 430 horsepower. 430 is still a lot though, so how would a car with half of that do? Well, better. The Drift King himself, Keiichi Tsuchiya, lives and breathes AE86, so it's no surprise his personal Hachiroku is tuned to perfection. Instantly recognizable with its signature green dry carbon hood, the only Corolla more famous than this is Takumi's in Initial D. Keiichi's engine is a 7AG 5-valve, jammed full of tech art goodies to make 219 horsepower. No other cars had as much work put into it to find the perfect balance for the Touge, with all kinds of curiosities implemented over the years, like a 3.5 gear. That's right, a gear between 3rd and 4th gear to make sure the car is always in the power band. The car has a dry carbon roof, but Keiichi is so in tune with the car that when they tried installing dry carbon doors, he felt it messed up the balance and caused his rear brakes to lock up a fraction sooner than he wanted. It almost sounds like the Princess and the Pea, but I mean, it's hard to argue when he can blast down Gunsai in a 35-year-old Corolla, hitting a 25.582 ahead of any modern supercar. With all the purebred sports cars on the list, some might be surprised that number 6 is held by a Honda Civic. Yep, the Seeker FD2 proved that front-wheel drive cars can party too. Just down the road from Spoon, Seeker's built some legendary Hondas over the years, and loves playing the underdog at the Touge. Named after the concept of always seeking new, better solutions, they recently brought out a Honda S660 and ran a 27.428, which doesn't make the list, but they did it with a measly 0.6 liter engine, tuned up to make a whopping 80 horsepower. Give the team at Seeker an extra 200 horsepower in an FD2, and they claimed 5th fastest on the Touge and the fastest front-wheel drive car of all time, with a 25.418. We've talked about the original 8.6, but what about the new model? There's been tons of shops experimenting with their 8.6s and bring them to the Touge, some with turbos and others with superchargers. But the fastest of all is the Revolution 8.6, clocking a blistering 25.404 with just 220 horsepower from a mildly tuned engine. The Revolution team actually had a custom 2.3 liter engine, but ran into trouble, so they went back to a relatively tame FA20 and focused on reducing weight. After going under the knife, the 8.6 shed more than 650 pounds, weighing just 2,160 pounds. With a bit of aero on top, it's no surprise this 8.6 is so fast. This is where things start getting intense, as none of the cars at the top of this list just rolled out of the shop and started dominating the Touge. All of these have spent countless hours testing and tuning their cars before handing them over to one of the 3 hot version drivers. The Arvo S2000 was not just light, but also powerful, with the supercharger boosting the 2.3 liter F20C to 410 horsepower. With all the ingredients to be king of the Touge, the team began hunting down the record, and quickly reached a 25.371, taking number 4 on this list. On the next lap though, the reality of Touge racing bared its teeth. Orito lost control and did a high-speed wall ride along the mountain before hitting a guardrail which slowed him just enough to stop the car going down the mountain. He was lucky to walk away, and while this was the end for the S2000, it's a good reminder of how dangerous Touge racing really is. The cars on this list are the ones that have survived, with many being crashed over the years. These crashes are happening with some of the best drivers in the world behind the wheel, so please, don't try any of this at home, Japan, or anywhere else. As a side note, there's a new Arvo S2000, and it's faster than ever, clocking a 53-second time at Tsukuba. If you want to learn about the fastest time attack cars on the track, check out my video on that in the description below. With the extra power and development, it's possible the Arvo S2000 has the potential to come back and take the top spot on this list, although I'm not sure if the owner will let it near the Touge ever again. If you really want to tempt fate though and up the stakes even more, why not get a mid-engine car known for snap oversteer? While the original car was stolen, I'm thankful this car survived a few close calls, as the MRS from Techno Pro Spirit is my own personal favorite on the entire list, and to me really embodies the spirit of the Touge and what modern cars just can't replicate. When Orito first took the car out, he thought to himself, Then Mr. Kurakama reached in, flicked a magic switch to adjust brake balance before sending him out again. This time, the little Toyota shocked everyone when it set an all-time sector record of 25.153 with just 190 horsepower. But then, well, it went even faster. and was the first car to ever break into the 24-second range with a 24.937. When pitted against Keiichi's beloved AE86 in an initial D-style battle, the MRS drove away in no time, with Arito commenting how easy it was and Keiichi furious. So what parts did Techno Pro Spirit use to beat fully custom cars? Well, the brakes were completely standard, bone stock. Radiator, standard. Front sway bar, stock. Interior, all there. And big sticky tires? Nope. Skinny 205s front and rear. Again, it was the fine tuning and balance which made this unlikely competitor such a dominant force. Since setting the record, the car's received a bunch of upgrades, including a sequential transmission, and has run a sub 1 minute lap at Tsukuba, while still retaining a used 2ZZ motor with extremely low horsepower compared to the usual Tsukuba fare. Although I saw it recently got a turbo as well, and quickly dropped its time down to a 58.0, with tons of room for improvement to go. Similar to the Arvo S2000, this car could very well come back and claim the crown one day, if Keiichi lets it. As a side note, I tried to buy one of these the other day, and even got on the trailer before uncovering some fishy paperwork and passing. Maybe another time. So, what's the fastest car in the Touge? Well, it's actually not as clear as you might think, as two cars have gone back and forth, pushing each other further and further into a class of their own. The first of these two cars is the J's Racing S2000. Having claimed the title of Mao, or Demon King of the Touge, this S2000 has appeared on a lot of episodes, beating up on those who challenged it while sporting its, well, memorable livery, with the demon itself right on the hood. Similar to the Revolution 8.6, J's Racing opted not to go for a supercharger or turbo, but instead brought the 2-liter up to 2.7 liters to make 340 naturally aspirated horses. The second of these cars is the Feed FD RX-7. While Initial D wasn't always right, they respected the rotary RX-7 in the show, and for good reason. This RX-7 made 621 horsepower from its Dorito-powered 13B, but was actually detuned to 420 horsepower for the Touge. Unlike the number 3 MRS, which had 205 tires, the Feed RX-7 used 295s all the way around. This combination of high power paired with the low, wide, lightweight chassis made the FD a menace. The rivalry between these two cars is honestly incredible, with both so evenly matched despite the inherent differences between them. They even cracked the 24-second barrier on the same day. 24.989. With the Feed car just 0.02 of a second ahead in the sector. Each year at the annual Touge Championship, these cars would work their way through the bracket to meet in the final. Often they were too evenly matched, and would take turns leading and following, trying to gap each other enough to declare a winner. Sometimes they couldn't, and the competition would have to be called a draw, as the repeated battles were more likely to lead to a nasty accident than discern a clear winner. The tension between the two owners was so intense as they watched their pride and joys battle it out, even if you don't speak Japanese.
そう言われたらね、負けてますもんね、タイムね。
These draws seemed to particularly upset the Feed team, as they had a lot more flexibility to tune the car and felt that with a few more PSI, they could have made it a clear decision. Even though the Feed RX-7 held the record, they decided that wasn't enough, and came back with AO52 tires. The result? With Knob behind the wheel, they absolutely crushed the record, taking another 0.3 off, down to a 24.672. Watching from the sideline though, J's Racing wasn't happy, and started preparing to challenge the record. When they came back, They brought RE05D tires, which they called the Invincible tire. They recruited Keiichi and began hunting down the record. Making changes based on the Drift King's feedback, and even stopping to weld the manifold, they came ever closer until they felt it was time to throw in some fresh tires and go for Veed's record. It still didn't seem to be quite enough, with the rear of the car bouncing around a bit too much, but the owner pleaded with Keiichi to go for one final all-out run. Then this happened. Yep, the exact same time, to the 1,000th of a second. The stories and rivalries in Initial D are great, but sometimes reality really is stranger than fiction and gives us amazing stories. The feed team is already chomping at the bit to get back and improve upon the record. Jays Racing knows it, and maybe other competitors like the Techno Pro Spirit could push the record further again with the changes they made to the car and modern tire selection. There are also tuners all over working away in silence, waiting for their chance to showcase their creations on the show. Touge Racing, while highly dangerous and illegal on public roads, has yielded some amazing drivers, cars, and stories over the years and will continue to do so moving forward. I personally can't wait to see what happens next. Thank you so much for watching the video, I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leaving a like and commenting your thoughts or what else you'd like to see really helps the cause. Have a great day.